through the end of, or the rest of Act 3 and to the end of the play. So we left off on 1579. And I was talking the other day about some of the terms that are used to describe Hermia. And we saw Lysander say when he woke up and fell in love with Helena, who would exchange a raven for a dove? Then we see 1578, line 258 or so, Lysander, again, away you Ethiopian, dark complexioned woman. And then top of the next page, he says, out, Tawny Tartar, out. Tawny Tartar would be like, Genghis Khan, the Mongolians, the Huns. Okay, dark skin. So there you have three references to her being both dark skin, and then we get a whole bunch to her being short. Okay, so we have essentially what's the fight scene between the four lovers, and Oberon and Puck come forward because they've been on the stage the whole time. Okay, Oberon and Puck come forward, page 1581, and Oberon says, "This is thy negligence. Still thou mistakest, or else commits thy knaveries willfully." Okay, still means always, constantly. You always screw up, or you do it intentionally. Screwing up isn't intentional. It's a mistake, but you do it all the time. Or you intentionally do it all the time. Puck, believe me, king of shadows. Who are the shadows that he is king of? The fairies. But we're going to hear Theseus in just a few minutes talk about plays as shadows. Okay? And then we're going to hear shadows referred to again at the end of the play in the epilogue. So, I mistook. You said, look for an Athenian youth. You'll know who it is by his Athenian garb. Look at Lysander. Youth, Athenian clothes. Not my fault. So he says, insofar am I glad it so did sort, that is, that it happened this way. Why? This their jangling I esteem a sport. What does he mean by jangling? It's kind of the noise they're making. Well, Puck considers that a sport. What do you think Helena thinks of it? Is it fun for her? Is it a spectator event for her, like we consider generally sports to be? No. For her, it's painful. Why? Well, the man she loves has never, he did love her once, but he still doesn't love her. What about Hermia? The man she was madly in love with, that she ran off in the forest to marry, has now turned his back on her. How badly has Lysander turned his back on Hermia? 3 times he has said, "You're not beautiful in my eyes anymore." The reference to her complexion. What else? Everybody else, according to Hermia's frame of mind, is picking on her because she's short. Okay? Oberon, these lovers seek a place to fight. That's not just jangling. That's just not just arguing. They're saying, come on, let's take it outside. So, he tells Puck to do what? Lead them all in such a place so that Demetrius goes to sleep next to whom? Helena. So that Hermia goes to sleep next to whom? Lysander. Put this juice on Lysander's eyes. Why Lysander? Why not Demetrius's? Because Demetrius already loves Helena. He loved Helena before the play began, and then he changed his mind, so to speak. But Lysander should love Hermia, so put it on Lysander's eyes and it'll do it. It'll remove the effect of the love juice. In other words, he will see as he should see. Okay? So, he says, meanwhile, I'm going to go to the Fairy Queen's bower and get the little boy from her. Okay? So, Puck leads them on the proverbial wild goose chase. pretends to be Demetrius, pretends to be Lysander, gets them all to fall asleep on the ground. And he says, when he puts the juice on Lysander's eyes, I'll apply to your eye gentle lover remedy. When thou wakest, thou takest true delight in the sight of thy former lady's eye. In the country proverb known, that every man should take his own. In your waking shall be shown, Jack shall have Jill, naught shall go ill. The man shall have his mare again, and all will be well. In other words, if he doesn't do this, this play could become a tragedy. Because you have two men killing each other, possibly for the love of one. Act 4. We open with the lovers still all asleep on the stage. Titania and her fairies come in. And Bottom falls asleep. She tells her fairies to leave. And Puck and Oberon come forward. And he says, see, her dotage now I do begin to pity. What does it mean to dote on something? It's to act irrationally in affection for it. Like, I don't know, maybe this is a wild example. I've known people who would spend, and maybe it's just because I'm not a car person, who would spend hours, literally hours, polishing, waxing their car. I mean, just going. Like, not just once. Like, not just once if I do it every 5 or 10 years, but like once a week. Or people who, get out, come up to their car and they notice somebody put their hands on it. You gotta get those fingerprints off. Nice. That's dotage, okay? You can dote on a person. Everybody in here has probably known, or maybe has, helicopter parents. You know those parents that hover over everything the child does so that the child, metaphorically lives in bubble wrap so that the child can never fall and get scraped, never have any harm come to it. Poor kid grows up so screwed up. That's what he means by dotage. That's what he means by dotage. So he says, while she was like this, I went to her and I got the Indian boy from her. So he got what he wanted from the beginning of our seeing him. Now that he has the Indian boy, he's like, and now I don't like seeing her like this. Why not? If Titania's going to dote on anyone, who should it be? Him. Okay? So, he says, I'm going to remove the love juice from her eyes and, gentle Puck, take this transformed scalp from off the head of this Athenian swain. Okay? Make Bottom as he should be, so that when he wakes, when the others do, they can all go back to Athens. And what? Line 63. Think no more of this night's accidents, but as the fierce vexation of a dream. So that when they all wake up, they'll go, that was weird. They'll all think that all these strange things that happened to them is nothing but a dream. But first I will release the Fairy Queen. So, notice, he's going to make her eyesight correct before Bottom gets the ass's head taken off. Be as thou wast wont to see as thou wast wont to see. Dian's bud or Cupid's flower hath such force and blessed power. Now, my Titania, wake you, my sweet queen, my Oberon. Notice, my Oberon. What were her first words to Oberon in the play? What? Jealous Oberon? That's kind of like, you buddy. Now it's my Oberon. What visions have I seen? Methought I was an imp. He just points to him. There lies your love. How came these things to pass? Oh, how mine eyes do loathe his visage now. Notice, you now see that you fell in love with an ass-headed man. In your quote-unquote, ladies, husband tells you, and you ask, how did this happen? And your husband says, silence a while. How many of you ladies are going to go, okay, because that's essentially what she does. Notice, silence a while. Does the a while imply that he's going to explain it to her later? I don't think so, because there's no explaining this, men. Just, no. Do I look too fat? Don't answer. Just, because what's the deadly word there? Too. Yes, you are too fat. No, you don't look too fat. You're just fat enough. Here's, just. So, they have the little singing dance thing, and then they all leave. Theseus comes in. Why? Well, Theseus and Hippolyta and their followers are going to go hunting on this morning. They come in, and he sees the lovers, and Aegeus comes up and says, this is my daughter, and Lysander, and there's Demetrius and Helena. I wonder of their being together. What does wonder mean? Beats me. I am amazed. I am stupefied. I am full of wonder. What in the world are they doing here? Okay. So they wake him up. And Theseus says, you two are rival enemies. How comes this gentle concord in the world? Concord. Cord, heart. Con, with. It means harmony. How comes this harmony? Because last time I saw the two of you together, what? You were both vying for the hand of this one woman. I shall reply amazedly. Amazedly means, I don't know. I don't know the reason, but here's what I do know. Hermia and I came here to get married, where Athenian law couldn't touch us. And what does Aegeus do? He cuts him off. That's why there's a dash at the end of Lysander's speech. That's it. That's enough. I want the Athenian law. Not on Aegeus' daughter. He wants it on Lysander's. He wants Lysander. He says, Demetrius, look what he's done. He would have defeated you and me. And Demetrius is like, notice Demetrius doesn't address Aegeus. He addresses Theseus. Why? Two reasons. One, Theseus is the leader of this society. So he's speaking truth to power. Okay. What else? It's Theseus who has the power. It's Theseus who can make his will happen. His Theseus's. Okay? So, my lord, fair Helen told me of their stealth. He says, and I followed them here, and I don't know why, but now I'm in love with Helen again. He says, and I was betrothed to fair Helen before I ever saw her yet. Okay? We heard earlier that he wooed Helena. We didn't know how far the wooing went. He got a ring on her finger. Theseus, fair lovers, you are fortunately met. That is, the goddess Fortune has smiled down on you, and you are as you ought to be. Lysander, Hermia, Demetrius, Helena. In fact, he says, we'll skip the hunting. Let's go back to Athens. Why? Time to get married. Not just Hippolyta and I. You two, you four, will also get married at the same time. Okay? So Theseus, Hippolyta, and their followers go off. The lovers kind of slowly follow, and they talk. Is this really happening? Methinks, Hermia says, I see things with parted eye. Kind of like every now and then if you get a bad head cold or something and you wake up and you got that crud in your eyes, and so your vision's kind of blurry and you have to really, that's what she means. I don't think I'm seeing things clearly. Helena, me too. Demetrius is like a jewel. Demetrius, wasn't the Duke just here, and didn't he just bid us to go to the temple? Yep. So they all go off, and then Bottom wakes up. And Bottom gives his account of Bottom's dream. One of the great scenes in all of Shakespeare. Okay? We go back to scene 2, or we go to scene 2. And what do we see? Peter Quince and the others are at Peter Quince's house. Peter Quince and the other mechanicals are at Peter Quince's house, and Bottom shows up. Bottom no longer has an ass's head, he has his own ass's head, okay? Because he is his own kind of ass. What does he tell them? Our play is preferred. Now, does that mean we've been chosen to play before the Duke? He says, all that I will tell you is that the Duke hath dined, get your apparel together, good strings to your beards, blah, 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 for our play is preferred. Now, usually preferred means it's chosen. And yet we're going to see in the very next scene, Act 5, Scene 1, has their play been chosen? No. Philostrate hands Duke Theseus a sheet of paper, and he starts reading through the titles. So, Act 5, Scene 1. Theseus and his court come in, and Hippolyta says, "'Tis strange, my Theseus, that these lovers speak of. That which, Theseus, more strange than true." What does he mean? "I never may believe these antic fables nor these fairy tales." Notice my pronunciation of that word. Antic. That's how it's pronounced in Shakespeare's day. Okay? And I think if it's pronounced that way, then it gives us the latitude of understanding it as either old, ancient, antique, or frantic, crazed. Okay? What has he just said? I don't believe these stories. I don't believe old fairy tales. Okay? Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies, that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. Lunatic, lover, and poet. They are of imagination all compact. That is, they're made up of imagination. Okay? Their shaping fantasies apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. What's the difference between apprehension and comprehension? Or the verbs to apprehend and the verb to comprehend. We tend to only use apprehend in one context in modern English. And that's when the police nab a suspect. The suspect was apprehended. Doesn't mean necessarily arrested. It means caught. Okay? But you don't say the subject was comprehended, right? You say the subject, English, science, recording industry, aerospace, was comprehended. Comprehended there means what? It's all up here. It's all understood. Okay? So go back. Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The shaping fantasies, their imaginations, apprehend, they reach out and grab things that cool reason, cool thought, logic, rationality, doesn't understand. The lover, the poet, the lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That's the lunatic. The lover, all as frantic, what? Sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. Remember the other day I talked about the Renaissance conception of beauty. White. How white? Artificially white. Nobody is that white. Okay? But that's the very model, very ideal of beauty. Look at what Theseus says again. The lover sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. Who is Helen? Helen of Troy. Helen that Paris of Troy captured, kidnapped. Not really. I mean, in most of the real stories, she went willingly, okay, with him back to Troy. Well, why Helen? Because Paris, a long time earlier, met the three goddesses, and they asked him to determine, well, who's the most beautiful of us? And he actually said, well, Helen is. Helen of Troy is more beautiful than the three goddesses. And they kind of like, okay, buddy, you are so screwed. And that's kind of the beginning of the Trojan War. So he says the very model of beauty, that's Helen, okay, is what? May be seen in a brow of Egypt. Brow of Egypt means what? A person from Egypt. You seen many white folks from Egypt? No. Most Egyptians are pretty dark-skinned. Okay? Not Ethiopian dark-skinned, like the reference to Hermia earlier. So what is he saying? The lover says what? Beauty is where? It doesn't mean that everybody who falls in love with somebody, that other person is ugly to everybody else. Not what he means. He just means beauty does what? Love does what to whatever it looks at? It makes it beautiful. If it's already beautiful, it does what? It amps up the beauty. Okay? The poet's eye, in a fine frenzy rolling, does what? Glances from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, meaning it goes from up here, Plato's realm of ideals, forms, universal truths, universal ideas like beauty, truth, justice, fairness, that kind of thing, to down here in the nitty-gritty world of real life, right? Because justice up here is all nice and good, but justice down here often isn't really justice. But it goes from there to here, from here to there. It does what? As imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. Let's take the poet out for a minute and apply this to an inventor. I don't know, the inventor of this thing. Not the telephone with the handle and the dial that Alexander Graham Bell, but we could use that one too. Because before Alexander Graham Bell had the idea of a telephone or created the prototype of a telephone, where did telephone exist? First of all, it didn't. When he came up with the idea, where did that idea exist? In his mind. But what did he do? He gave the idea, telephone, body. He bodied it forth and gave it a local habitation, a place, and a name. Telephone. Tele, distance, phone, sound. Long distance sound. Just like television. Long distance seeing. It's Tolkien's Palantir, by the way. It's the exact same word. Okay? So this is what the poet does. The poet's like an inventor. The only difference is, inventors invent what? Well, things like this, things like all this crap, this thing, bottle. And poets invent what? Ideas. Yeah, but ideas are up here. Is bottom as real as this thing? He's not real in the sense that this has physical materiality. Bottom doesn't have physical materiality until you go see a production. And then bottom has a local habitation, Athens, the wood, Peter Quince's house. and a name, Nick Bottom the Weaver. And from this moment till the ends of your lives, you will remember something. I don't know what, but you will remember something about Nick Bottom the Weaver. Nick Bottom will be real up here. Okay? Such tricks hath strong imaginations, that if it would, imagination, would, but apprehend some joy, apprehend, right? Grab hold of. If the imagination would apprehend, grab hold of some joy, it does what? It comprehends some bringer of that joy. That is, there must be something behind that joy. There must be some cause of that joy. Oh, so maybe you don't want to talk about joy and stuff. Thesis kind of implies. Or, in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear? See, talking about joy, apprehension, and comprehension, that's one thing. We might have trouble with that. But this, at night, hearing a sound, seeing something, it's a lot easier to comprehend that there is some basis behind that fear. You hear a rustling in the leaves outside your room. And what might your mind tell you? There's somebody out there. Or there is something out there. Or you're walking on a dark street and you think you hear it. And you turn to look and there's nobody there. Or you lie down when you're a little kid, you go to sleep at night. And you wake up, or maybe you're not quite asleep, and you open your eyes and you see something in your room. Is it real? Is it really there? Hippolyta. Yeah. But they all saw the same thing. They all dreamed the same thing. Their imaginations all body forth the same. Doesn't happen, she says. And it grows to something of great constancy. Constancy, certainty. She's saying it means something, but she doesn't know what. Notice, she doesn't apprehend, okay, the meaning, or comprehend the meaning, I guess. So, the lovers come in, and Philostrate comes in. He hands Theseus the letter. And Theseus reads through a bunch of the titles. Why doesn't he want to do several of these? Because they're family history. They're things either he has done or his relative, like Hercules, has done. And he says, I've already told Hippolyta about this, etc. But here's one. A tedious, brief scene of young Pyramus and his love Thisbe. Very tragical mirth. And he's like, merry and tragical? Well, unless you're twisted, you don't find joy in somebody else's pain. Tedious and brief. Brief means taking a short amount of time. Tedious kind of means time just draws out and doesn't finish. Well, that is hot ice and wondrous strange snow. How shall we find the concord of this discord? Remember, concord of the four lovers in the discord they had earlier. So he's kind of, let's figure this out. Philostrate. He goes, there's a play 10 words long, but it's 10 words too long. Who are the players? Who's going to do this thing? Hard-handed men that work in Athens here, who it's never labored in their minds till now. In other words, they never really thought much. These are dummies, Philostrate is saying. Theseus, that's it. We're going to have that one. No, my lord. Not for you. I've heard it over. Now, we will hear that play. Why? For never anything can be amiss when simpleness and duty tender it. Now, your gloss tells you for simpleness, simplicity. Yeah, it has that meaning. It also means sincerity. Okay? Never anything can go amiss when simplicity or sincerity and duty, what? Tinder it. Notice, where are the simpleness and the duty? They're on the part of those who will produce this play. What does he mean? Those who watch the play can never miss out. They can never not enjoy it. Why? Because those on the other side of the fourth wall are doing their best. Need an example from real life? Every one of you has been in the shoes of the hard-handed men that work in Athens here that never labored in their minds till now. And I don't mean in the last year or whatever, but every one of you, as a little child, drew something, took it to one of your parents. And one of your parents looked at it and said, "Oh, that's beautiful." When, in objective reality, it's just ugly scribbling. You know, again, like Stevie Wonder got a bunch of markers and just went crazy on a piece of paper. No real beauty. But simpleness on the part of the artist and duty. Why does a child do that? To please his or her parents. That's the duty part. Therefore, he says, bring them in. Come on, let's take our places. So, Hippolyta says, I don't want to see wretchedness overcharged. What does she mean by wretchedness? These poor slobs, these low-class people. Hippolyta has an attitude. She's an elitist. She looks down her nose at people who aren't of her level. Right? Theseus, my gentle sweet, you shall see no such thing. That is, you won't see wretchedness overcharged. But he says they can't do this. He, illustrated, says they can't carry this out. What does she mean by that? They won't be able to put on what kind of production? Full, United Artists Hollywood. It won't be Oscar winning. That's not what Theseus means, though. The kind are we to give them thanks for nothing. What's the nothing? Whatever it is they produce. The kind are we to give them thanks for that. Why? Our sport shall be to take what they mistake. We shall take what they screw up. In other words, we will fix in ourselves what they blow, what they totally mess. And what poor duty cannot do. They're doing their best. Their best, if it were to be objectively, let's say, graded, would be an F. You take an exam from me, you get 15 points out of 100. Theseus is saying, if that exam were not something that measured, your studying and all that kind of stuff, but it were just something you just brought up and said, and it was horrible. Theseus is saying, our job is to take that and, with noble respect, takes it in might, not merit. What does that might mean? What it might be, what it could be, not what it actually is. So what kind of play do largely Bottom and Thisbe put on? It's rip-roaringly, hilariously funny. It's not supposed to be. It is supposed to be a great tragedy. How do you know? Because they each kill each other for love. He kills himself because he thinks his beloved is dead. There's nothing funny about that. She kills himself because he is dead. That's not funny. The way they do it, however, is every production I've seen hilarious. I mean, they've got the audience rolling on the floor laughing. Theseus is saying, our job is to take what they intend. This is not a comedy, it's a tragedy. And he talks about, I've been places where people have memorized these great speeches to give me this wonderful welcome. And I come in the room in all my magnificence, and they do what? They barely even get a word out. And he says, and in that silence, I picked out a look. I took that to mean they're just so tongue-tied to be in my awesomeness. Okay? So, Peter Quince comes out and delivers his prologue. Not much time. Comes out and delivers his prologue. Now the prologue is printed with the marks of punctuation according to how Peter Quince actually delivers it. He screws it up. That's what it means when Theseus says, this fellow doth not stand upon points. Points is marks of punctuation. In Shakespeare's day, marks of punctuation was all oratorical. It was all for delivery. Had nothing to do with the grammatical structure. Like, if Shakespeare were writing an essay, he would never get a CS, comma, splice. Why? Because you could join two independent clauses with a comma. All the comma indicated, pause. And then go on. Semicolon, longer pause. Period, stop, take a drink, go on. Listen to just the first couple lines. If we offend, it is with our goodwill. Long pause. That means what? End of idea. End of sentence. A sentence is an idea. Okay? So what did Peter Quince just really tell his audience? We intend to offend you. No, it's not what he intends. Here's how it should read. If we offend, it is with our goodwill that you should think we come not to offend. Period. It is our goodwill that you think we come not to offend you. Okay? So they then rip the prologue apart, and then he comes out and delivers the real prologue. And what's the purpose of the prologue? This man, Pyramus, isn't really Pyramus. It's Nick Bottom movie. This woman, Thisbe, isn't really Thisbe. It's Flute the bellows mender. This lion isn't really a lion. It's this wall isn't really a wall. It's so what have they just done to the fiction we all have to create in our minds when we see a play? That this is real. If you don't tell your mind when you go to see a film or a play or watch TV, this is real, you will never appreciate, enjoy anything. Okay? You have to accept its reality for the moment that you're there. So he completely destroys the reality. As Pyramus does whenever he addresses the audience directly. Okay? So, Pyramus kills himself. Thisbe comes in. She kills herself over him. We get the play end, and we hear Theseus say, well, then Moonshine and Lion are left to bury the dead. Demetrius, I and Wall too. What does Pyramus do? Pyramus, remember, has, thus I die. Thus. He pulls the sword out each time. Thus. Okay? So he's dead on the stage. And now what does he do? He stands up and addresses them. So, Theseus says, no epilogue. And we get Puck come out. And Puck starts to sweep. The other fairies come out. They bless all the marriages. They all leave. And Puck gets the final words. If we shadows have offended. Okay, there's that shadows again. He referred to Oberon as king of shadows. On the previous page 1596, during the play within the play, Hippolytus says, this is the silliest stuff that I ever heard. Theseus, line 205. The best in this kind are but shadows. And the worst are no worse if imagination amended them. What does it mean to amend something? You fix it. The Bill of Rights are 10 amendments. What does that mean? The guys who wrote the Constitution screwed up. So, the First Amendment was added, and the Second Amendment, and the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, all the way to the 10th Amendment. And then guess what? 17 other times it's been amended. One of those amendments was to fix a previous amendment screw-up. Okay? The repeal of prohibition. So, the play ends. Puck comes out and says, I'm going to give the quiz out in just a moment. If we shadows. Who are the we shadows? The fairies? What else? The best in these kind are but shadows. All the animals are but shadows. Then think this, and all is needed. That is, you won't be offended anymore. That you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. Think that you've just been asleep here for how long? If you see National Shakes, about 2.5 hours. If you see this at the Globe, where nothing will be cut, closer to 4 hours. Right? In other words, you've taken a 4-hour nap. A Midsummer Night's Dream. In this week in idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Well, how much does a dream yield? How many of you have dreams that actually come true? Yeah, I didn't think so. Because those people are generally called prophets or seers. If you're seeing the future before it really happens, come see me and I'll buy some stock. Gentles do not reprehend. Who are the gentles? Specifically, they're the people sitting in the seats. They're not the people standing. The Puck doesn't distinguish. He says, you're all gentles in my eye. If you pardon, we will mend. Well, how can they pardon? And as I am an honest Puck, whoa, how was Puck introduced? Aren't you that merry wanderer of the night who likes to trick people and lead the wanderers? Yeah, that's me. And yet, did Puck ever intentionally harm anyone in the play? No. So he says, give me your hands. That is Puck, the actors, and ultimately Shakespeare, the playwright, saying, oh, I hope they like it. I really hope they like it. And the audience just bursts into applause at this point. Okay, we'll stop there. Quiz is pretty short. Put everything away. I can leave all this because none of that will help you. So just turn it in when you're done. Start Hamlet for Wednesday. So we're a day or two behind. One correction, number 9, second line. It should read, it burned down in 1613. That was just a typo on my part.
We didn't know that.